Once again, very, very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, all our viewers. Just so sorry for the interruption into our program tonight. It's not of our own making, but somehow, somewhere, somebody decided to cut off our conversation with the Professor Milton Alimadi. But Milton Alimadi is a friend and colleague of mine, and I'll pass on your compliments to him. And if you can continue, and I would like, if anybody has a question, I am in the studios with D. D is here, and we can try and talk to you and answer questions that you may raise from what Professor Milton Alimadi said tonight. But we are welcome. You are all welcome. And just before you start our questions, I want to alert you that next week we have a distinguished Ugandan politician, one of the few remaining who attended the Moshi conference that brought about the fall of Idi Amin in 1978. Please keep in touch. We have Mr. Israel Mayengo as our next guest. Next weekend is coming on, and there's a lot to tell all of you about what happened and where we stand today. And after that, we've also lined up people like distinguished Ugandan lawyer Peter Morira. He's also agreed to come on our show. And the former Prime Minister or Katikiro of Buganda, Dan Mulika, is also in line to come on our show. So please keep tuned. We'll tell you when they will come. So we wait for your questions. And Dee, do you have anything to say?
No, not much to say, but it's been, regardless of the network interruptions and the cutoffs and the in and offs, hopefully once the output is out, the full one, we can all get to go. And I advise every one of our viewers, you should go rewatch the whole show, because there were so many interruptions and there was a lot in that conversation that had to be heard or listened to. Because I started out by I was watching on one of our channels, and when interruptions came, I could still keep with the conversation because I was in the background. So I know that some of our viewers did not get the conversation in its full because it was being cut bits into bits. So please put it upon yourself to go rewatch the whole conversation, and also get your copy of that book. And we cannot fully answer all the questions like Professor Milton Alimadi would, because this is a book of his making and from his research. But please do get it and prepare your questions, and we can keep the conversation going based off of what has been said here tonight. But in between the conversation with, of course, you, Senior Gombya and Professor Alimadi. But other than that, yeah, always humbled. I'm grateful to be a part of these conversations and to see where they can take us to liberate ourselves, because that is still something that we need to do as a people, not only as Ugandans, but as Africans as a whole.
Thank you very much, Dee. So, producers, if we can maybe bring in a question, if we don't have them at the moment, we can take a 3 minutes break and bring in all questions that people want to ask. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back here. First of all, I want to let you know that we have had interruptions, not of our own making, but I think, as you can understand, we are discussing very serious issues about our country, and I think those in power don't want us really to discuss these problems, but we will continue to discuss them. Our next guest next Sunday, Mr. Israel Mayengo, is a veteran Ugandan politician. He's one of those who has been in Ugandan politics for quite a long time. He's actually one of the very few remaining people who attended the Moshi conference that brought about the fall of Idi Amin in 1979. I also bring around another veteran politician, Dr. Arnold Bisase. I'm looking for him. Dr. Bisase, if you're hearing me now, please get a phone, call UNN. The number is there on the screen all the time. And I want to speak to you, and you know me. I know you. You know my house. You've been to my house. And please, we want you because you're one of the very few, Dr. Bisase, who attended the Moshi conference that brought the downfall of Idi Amin's regime. Now, tonight we've had the son of former Ugandan Prime Minister, Eric Otema Alimadi. Eric was a great friend of mine. We used to meet here in Earl's Court in London and share a popular drink, gin and tonic, together every day, Monday to Friday. I used to get up, go to a meeting place in Earl's Court, share drink, and others that I will not mention, maybe they don't want me to mention. Some of them are already past, like him. But we used to meet in Earl's Court and consider the future of Uganda. And then I get to meet and understand and know his son, Milton Alimadi, the professor of journalism at the Columbia Graduate School of Journalism in New York. And Milton, we've known each other for quite some time now, and I even contributed to his publication, the Black Star News. And so, unfortunately, he had to be cut off by somebody, not us, but we'll get him. And any question that anyone wanted to ask him, please do send the questions to us. And this time we're here. We've got about 40 minutes left. We are here. We wait and answer any question you want. And the producers, if you have anybody at the moment who has come in with a question, we're here to take that question on. Myself and Dee.
It's quite unfortunate that that Professor is not here with us yet, but there is a chapter in the book Manufacturing Hate, how Western media demonized, how Africa was demonized by Western media. There is a chapter in there, and he did briefly talk about it. A chapter called Rwanda Noble Africans versus. It talks about the Africans that were regarded as normal versus the true Negro African in relation to what is happening in our 21st century, whereby we all publicly know that President of Rwanda, Kagame, is a CIA agent and works for the interests and the benefits of of the US government, which is mineral exploitation in the Congo. And we all know that, of course, it seemed as if the US was not involved at all in what happened with the genocide, but were heavily involved. And it's on a belief that some Africans might have voted from the European. So I haven't read the whole chapter, but it would be, I think, for our viewers who would get a copy of that book, a chapter to dive in and read and get to know much more about, because we neighbor Rwanda, we neighbor Congo, and we are tied into what happens in the Congo. We're tied into what happens to the African continent as a whole, but mainly what happens in the Congo is of Museveni's doing and Kagame's doing. Uh, so we're tied and indebted to the Congolese people because of what these regimes have managed to do, and they couldn't have done this without Western media and glorifying and sanitizing Kagame's image, and also suppressing Museveni's image for so long, not until these elections, like Professor Alimadi had said, whereby Ugandans took charge of the narrative with social media, where the violence was undeniably portrayed, could not be denied, could not be doubted. So I think that's one of the chapters that I definitely am gonna go back, revisit and read carefully as how it plays in our contemporary lives.
D, D. Professor said he was going to send me a copy of that book. Would it be
Yeah.
better, maybe you are near because you are in Vancouver and he's in New York? Would it be
Yeah.
much easier if he send that copy to you instead of sending it to me and you look it up and analyze it for us?
Yes. Of course, I'm going to say yes. Thank you so much.
Okay.
When will you
Okay.
get your copy? Because
So
it's
it doesn't
we
matter.
all must.
If you get a copy, I've got it. Unless he's good enough to send both of us a copy. But if he cannot send both of us a copy, I'm going to ask him tonight. Instead of sending that copy to me, he should send you that copy so that you can analyze it for us, because it will get to you much quicker than getting it to me here in England. Yeah, so you're in Canada. You're just close to him. So yeah, I'll ask him that, and if you can kindly send me your address, and I will give it to him, and then yes, I can ask him to send a copy to you, and you can if you cannot send both of us a copy, I'll ask you, okay, you just send it to D on behalf of the UNN, and we'll take it from there.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Sir Gombia.
Okay.
Yes, delighted, much delighted.
Okay. Again, I want to let all our viewers tonight understand that we are giving you information of a list of our viewers. Of our people who are coming on our show. We're going to get interruption because when we give you information, also our enemies are going to get that information. Like today, we got interrupted, and I'm told by the producers that the moment Professor Alimadi came online, we had over 1,000 hackers who are trying to disrupt our program. The moment Professor came online, we had over 1,000 hackers. So yes, all I want to tell our viewers is please do arrange questions so that when we go into the break with our next guest, we will have questions already for him, so that by the time he or she finishes whatever they are saying, we're ready with the questionnaires. This program is only for 2 hours, from 7 to 9. Now it is we started late again. And that is something we're going to try and fight, because I am a kind of person who always wants to start on time. When I say it's 7, it's going to be 7. When I say we end at 9, it's going to be 9. No more than that. That is what John. It cannot be, oh, we are waiting for another program to end. That cannot be. So we
So
have
you're
to
going to be
stop, we have to start on time and stop on time. So all our viewers,
mm,
please do send us any questions you have about our former guest, who has just left us now, Professor Milton Alimadi, son of former Ugandan Prime Minister Eric Otema Alimadi. Please come on, ask us questions. We'll answer them on his behalf. If we can't answer them, we'll pass them on to him, and then on our next show, we'll answer them. So I'm waiting for the producers in the background to see whether we have voice messages, voice questions, and so on.
mm.
But it's very useful that sorry.
Mm. No, I was saying just to, as the producer sorts out, it's again to reinstate what has been said here today. One of the things that has been very important is, I think, from this discussion, we need to take hold of our narrative, and the one way that we can do it is through collaborative reporting between the diaspora and 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 the people on the ground back home, our country people back home. Uh, so if anyone has any stories to send them through, you can send them to UNN, you can send them to Baxter. We just need to make sure that we take a hold of this narrative once again and keep that momentum going, as Professor Alimadi said about the situation in Sudan. And I think another example that I can give from my observation has been Haiti. Haiti has managed to use social media and
Okay.
and making sure that the people at home and in the diaspora are on the same page when it comes to information and stories, because a lot of things happen back home and are published only and are published locally but cannot be explored to the full extent. For example, we're having the terrorist issue, but because of the doubt that we have about the media back home,
Yeah.
there is a whole vacuum of doubt about the whole situation, but people are dying at this cost. So, and Islamophobia is being heightened once again as a tool of this regime. So, this is just a call out to journalists back home, to
Okay.
people back home who have this ability to access these stories and have it documented. The people, us in the diaspora, let me not say the people, we are more than willing. And this is what we have to do to make sure that we liberate ourselves.
Okay. We've got a question here from a viewer. And unfortunately, I don't see their name yet. But the question is this. Thanks so much for the show, despite the disturbance. My question is, how best can we put back our pride into our people at home without spreading the hate like the whites did?
Mm,
How can we put our pride back into our people without spreading the hate that the whites did to us? How
mm,
best can you pull down that
mm,
sculpture of that explorer talked you talked about, with no hate extended to the whites, but with love for our country and African nations at large?
mm.
Let me give you a chance, D, to answer that question, and I also come in afterwards.
Yeah, I think I'll answer it from my experience. From my experience with, and I'll recommend just some things that one can look at or look up to. The first book that ever helped me uh, rethink about my position, my identity as an African or as a Black person, I'd recommend this to everyone. It's called Black Consciousness by Steve Biko, especially in relation to European invasion. So once we become conscious of who we are, and that brings back the pride. And just because the pride comes back of being who you are and being politically conscious of your positionality, I'll use a quote for this. When Kwame Nkrumah wanted to talk about, when he was talking about a united Africa, uh, a united socialist Africa, which is Pan Africanism, and trying to bring all African leaders together and look at a program that will benefit each African nation in a federal united Africa with us, with scientific socialism as our economic base. He said that us coming together is not the world's superpower or the next US or the next China, but it's nations with a relationship that will be based on friendship, understanding. So just because Europeans decided to use malice to corrupt our minds, to corrupt our minds, to loot and exploit us, doesn't mean that us getting conscious we will retaliate the same hate, if that makes sense. Just because that was their mode of what, doesn't mean that once we empower ourselves enough, this is going to mean that we are going to retaliate that hate. More so, it is, I see African liberation, personally, African liberation within the Pan-African sphere, within the Pan-Africanist notion, or as a political bracket, as a way that can actually put the world back into balance and save us from ultimate destruction because of the capitalist states and what they do, and also take away the removal of dignity, because this happens at the expense of our people. uh,
Yeah.
so another book that I can recommend is Decolonizing the Mind by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. This is also a good book to go and look at. But if those don't help, and you're not so much someone who's down to sitting and reading literature, go watch Kwame Ture talk about about the African. Go watch Malcolm X's speeches. And also one other speech that I would recommend is a speech that is not heavily popularized. It's called Birth of a Nation by Martin Luther King, where he talks about attending the independence of Ghana and how African liberation movements at that time, our independence movement, inspired what we have been told, the civil rights movement. There is connection between Africans in on the continent and Africans in the diaspora. And now in the 21st century where we live, the connection is clear as day, because the contradictions of the European system of governance, economics are also clear as day. So it's not a juxtaposition of when we liberate ourselves, we'll hate into the world. We don't have that intent and malice. We're fighting for our dignity, and it's just a war of our liberation. So the only thing I can tell our viewer is I wouldn't worry a lot about the hate part, because that's not our intent. Our intent is actually our own liberation and securing our freedom and being able to live with dignity in this world, because that is owed to us, and no one will give it to us other than ourselves. So go look at some literature. If that's not it for you, go watch Kwame Ture speak. Go watch Malcolm X speak, and also watch The Birth of a Nation by Dr. Martin Luther King. That's also a good place to start. It will redirect you to various sources.
Thank you so much. That is a wonderful explanation. From my own personal experience, I can only say this: is that the questioner here says, how can we best put back our pride into our people at home without spreading the hate like the whites did?
mm,
First of all, why should we hate the white people? We
mm,
should not be looking at the white people because of the colors of skin. They are people like us. If you start looking at white people because of their color, it means they're also becoming racist. But I think we're all the same. It's just the color. Inside us, there's not a simple difference between white, black, Asian, nothing different. It's just the skin that changes because of the environment in which we live. I've found so many
mm,
friends from the white community, from the Asian community, from the black community. I remember when I visited Vancouver nearly over 20 years ago, and I found this lady in Vancouver, in British Columbia, who had lost her husband, and she took me to the wardrobe of her former husband. And I was a young man coming from Africa, and she took me to her wardrobe and said, "These are all the clothes my husband had. Go in, find whatever can fit you." And she let me try myself in her former husband, who had already passed away, and chose some suits to fit me, and went back in Uganda very, very happy. Now, this was not a black woman. This was a white woman in British Columbia, in Vancouver, who said, "Come on in, we can accommodate you." Now, if we are going to bring about change, I think we should not be bringing about change looking at color. We ourselves, the black people, can be as hateful as the white can be. You have seen what people in South Africa, some people, not all of them, some people have done to Africans who have gone there to try and get a living there. And the South Africans have said, "No, this is South Africa, it's for South Africans." And they've started hacking to death Africans, African immigrants who go there, not remembering how much African countries spent on really helping South Africa from the apartheid regime. So, whatever we do, I don't think we should base it on color. We should base it on our conscience. We ourselves, how do we want to be seen? Let's have these people, whether they're black, white, yellow, green. Unfortunately, we don't have green people. But I think any color we should not look at. We're all humans. That is my say. We're all humans. And there's so many white people who look at us as just humans, not because of our color. Also, there's so many people who look at us in the white community as a different culture. I remember not so long ago, not so long ago, this year, somebody from Poland asked me, "But in Africa, do you really have houses?" And I looked at this chap. I'm so senior to him where I work. And I looked at this chap asking me whether we really have homes in Africa. Because he has got that mentality that Africans still live in huts. Because the pictures that the Western media, the problem is the Western media has been putting up pictures of Africa as being the worst place you can ever go to. And then giving us, I remember growing up and seeing pictures of the Thames River. Every picture I remember seeing was the Thames River was blue. And I couldn't wait to come here in London to see the blue water in the Thames. When I came to see the Thames River, there's no blue at all. There was a picture the media gave. Blue meant good, bright, wonderful waters. You cannot find any blue water on the River Thames anywhere. Because first of all, I work with Thames water, and most of the sewage is dropped in Thames water. So it's not
Big
as
irony.
blue. It's not as blue as people think. Because I know for sure the majority of the sewage in England here finally ends up in Thames water. In Thames water. Otherwise, where else would they drop it? There's nowhere else they can drop it. But by the time it gets there, it's been made a little bit better. And mostly they've got areas where all the sewage, before it gets dropped into Thames River, is condensed, and you can actually drink it because they put all chemicals in it, and it's so perfect, it becomes pure. But most of it, they don't let it go to people to drink it, and nobody should ever tell you that they drop water into the Thames water for people to drink, because that doesn't happen. The sewage mostly ends up in farms, being used as something to make something to make plants look better and grow better, as fertilizers. So that's the point. But that's the image. The image we had when I was growing up in Africa was the Thames River. It was always blue. We never had a Thames River that was a picture of Thames River that was dark or brown, as most of the time is. No. And I've never seen a blue River Thames anywhere. I've never seen any blue river anywhere in England. I've traveled all over England. So that's the image we get. But the image is what I think Professor Milton, my colleague, is trying to put up and saying we have been demonized. That ours is the worst place you can ever live in. That
And
Africa is. Go ahead.
And I think that you've spoken to it, though through a story. In order to demonize Africa, Europeans had to glorify. So it created that dichotomy whereby, once manufacturing it, Africa was, because we were always juxtaposition to Europeans. As Professor Alimadi was speaking, it's like Europeans, like when you look like it was always like they are not as civilized like we were 1,000 years ago. So that dichotomy where us the Africans were fed this hyper image of Europe as they have this, they have that, and we're fed this image of ourselves as backward and savage like, and it's fed to it's done worse to us, because then that is spread to the world, all over to Asia, Latin America, and our diaspora also. Let's not forget, we have a very strong diaspora in Latin America that we don't speak about because of the transatlantic slavery, and they're still there, and they've managed to adapt to living in Latin America and continue African traditions and cultures in the Caribbean. There's Africans everywhere, And this image became universal, as Professor Alimadi was saying. And so did
Yeah.
the universal image of strong Europe thrive ahead
Yeah.
on the backs of demonized Africa.
Yeah. Okay. That's a great idea. And again, what we have to point out to our viewers is this: is that all we need to do is to be proud of ourselves, of where we stand, of who we are. It's not about our color. It's about our personality. You may be white, you may be black, you may be Indian, you may be Asian, but for me, I look at you, I don't look at you as a black Ugandan girl living in Canada. I look at you as a person and I judge you according to who you are, not about your color. And I think this is where all of us and almost all the people in the world, I wish they could just take this time and say, we're all humans. Because when you go inside, there's nothing different from us apart from the skin. They say that, oh, for us, some of, some American extremists, I call them, say that, oh, we are more clever than you guys, so on and so forth. But yes, we have also clever guys in Africa. We have also clever dark-skinned guys. I won't say Africa, dark-skinned guys from everywhere who can do anything that the people are doing. But we have been colonized, and as Milton is trying to project in his book, which I really want to read, the hate that was put about demonizing Africans, demonizing everyone black, that because up to now that demonization continues to this day. I remember working in Boston, in Massachusetts, about 15 years ago, and I met an African American. And one day when we were working, I had an injury, and there was blood coming from my hand, and he said, "Oh no 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 no! I don't want to be anywhere near you because you guys have HIV." And I've never had HIV. I confronted him, you guys, what makes you think that I have HIV? Oh, you have all you Africans, you all have HIV. That's a demonization. Africans have HIV. I have never had HIV in my life. And I was working in Boston. I didn't have an HIV. But because I had an injury and blood came out of my he didn't want to be anywhere near me. And this was an African American. I lectured him so much that in the end he became a very great friend of mine because he realized how wrong he was. Yeah.
And
So
I think
that's
this. Oh
go
no,
ahead.
Senior Gombya, go ahead. No, you go ahead because
No,
you all did talk about that during the show, and I think there was a good speech that people can go watch as well. So, in regards to that notion of African hate and how it affects the manufacturing of the hate for the African in Western media and how it
yes,
affects different African diasporic communities. So,
yes. I'm waiting for us to read that book. If I don't get it first, I'll prefer actually to for you because you're nearer Milton than I am. It will take about 2 weeks to get to me. I don't think it will take that long for you to get that book for me. So I'm gonna send. If you text me your address, then I'll send it
I
to
will.
Milton, and then he sends you the book instead of sending it to me, so that we can get it the quicker, the earlier, the better, and you
No.
can analyze it and you
Mm,
can read it through to our audience.
Okay, no worries at all. And as always, I think we're coming to the wind down of our show for today.
Yep,
And
yep.
I will go ahead and thank all our viewers who have persisted with us throughout this program from where it started up to where it is now. I'd advise you, if you're within access, to get a copy of Manufacturing Hate, how Africa was demonized by Western media by Professor Milton Alimadi. Get yourself a copy and the conversation going. And also, due to network interruptions, a lot of bits and parts were cut out, but the output and the whole video is always in the back hard drives that will be uploaded. Go rewatch the whole show, as I was able to watch it from backstage in its fullest, and go and rewatch the whole show and continue the conversation, and also take the advice that's been given thus far, because we are still within the revolutionary process of removing not only just a one-man ban, which is Museveni, but totally scrapping this regime and the nature of politics that this regime has put in our country for the past 35 headed to 40 years, as we need to totally clean the system, which will be work that we have to do for a period of time that's unknown. But right now we need the momentum, and main theme of taking from today is what we plan on doing here every day is we need to actually run the narrative. No one can run the narrative for us as Ugandans, but we can only do this if we come together. Journalists back home, reach out. You have very many sources to reach out to. We had two seasoned journalists here today, Ugandans. We had two seasoned journalists in Senior Gombya, another seasoned journalist in Professor Milton Alimadi. Like, we had two, and these are these are their ancestral land is in Uganda, born of the soil. So when these things happen within your lifetime, you're honored, you're humbled. Let's not take this lightly, and they're in the diaspora now and can push those stories and can highlight those stories, not for the benefits of themselves and their careers, but for the benefit of our people. So take it upon yourself. If you're out there seated on a story you cannot produce, get it out of the country for the narrative to be actually run by Ugandans in the diaspora and Ugandans back home, so that it's a collaborative effort. And I think that's where I'll end today. And thank you, Senior Gombia, for having me today. Thank you for organizing and getting our guest here. And as it's very apparent, we are still seeking the tip to when we actually liberate ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one little comment before we close up. We've got about 5 minutes to end this program. Next program is not going to be in pure English. It's going to be in Lugangereza. That is part English, part Luganda. Our host can speak it very well. He can talk both in Luganda and English at the same time, and that's how we're gonna carry on. So it's going to be everybody. Maybe some of our viewers may have been put off by the English we use. We're coming back to for the next, I think, 3 weeks. We'll be either speaking in Lugangereza or in pure Luganda until we get another. I don't have a host. I mean, uh,
A guest senior.
somebody somebody I'm bringing up who is from any other language. For the next three speakers, we can speak freely in Luganda and English combined together, which we have named, or I named, Lugangereza. So please be prepared for next Sunday. We start prompt 7 in the evening UK time, which is going to be 9 Ugandan time, and I don't know what time it's going to be in Canada. D, can you tell us what time that could be?
I think it's
7
about noon,
noon
noon.
Canadian time. I think about the same time in New York and most of
Oh no, in New York it
America.
would be 3 p.m. We have a time
3 p.m.
difference with them. I'm on the West Coast, the East Coast.
Okay, you are in the east.
I'm in the West. They're in the East.
Okay. Or your west time. So yeah, okay. I think the best way is to try and ask our viewers to try and get these time limits, because we broadcast this program from here in London, which is based on GMT time. That's Greenwich Mean Time. And when we say 1900, it means 7 o'clock. And you can check your times there and see. It's very easy to check your times. Just go on Google, check what time is it in England, and you compare it to your time there. That's the best easy way to make it. Just go on Google. If the program is starting at exactly 7 p.m. in London, go on Google, find out what time it will be wherever you are, and know and mark it. Don't miss next Sunday. It's going to be fire, because the person you are bringing is one of the very few people who are remaining alive, who attended the Moshi conference that changed system, changed everything in Uganda, brought about second Obote, and eventually uh, the generals and Museveni. So please don't miss it. He's waiting for you. He says he can't wait to come and tell you what he knows about what happened. So until next Sunday, I want to say all of you, thank you so much. D in the background, everybody from the producers. This is Henry Gombya signing off tonight. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you next Sunday. Good night.